In Peru, indigenous people and social movements mobilized on Saturday to demand President Dina Boluarte's resignation and a constituent assembly. In Ecuador, the National Electoral Council kicked off the date of local elections and constitutional referendum. More than 13 million people are expected to vote. And in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro highlighted people's threatening to face sanctions against the country. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Peru on Saturday, people marched once again to demand political changes in the nation. The march departed from Alipo Bridge in the capital Southern Lima area. The mobilization was led by several social organizations. The activists demand President Dina Boluarte's resignation, Congress closure, a constituent process, and the liberation of former President Pedro Castillo. The National Executive has reacted to the situation of political crisis in the country with brutal police repression, leaving thousands of people dead and hundreds wounded. Despite the climate of instability, the Congress blocked the debate to call early elections until August. The Peruvian Congress postpones until August all kinds of discussions or debates to bring forward general elections, this rewarding one of the main demands of the demonstrators against the appointed President Dina Boluarte. Congress' decision was taken after its Constitutional Commission rejected to debate the initiative presented by Boluarte to bring forward the presidential elections to next October. The measure was approved with 11 votes in favor, 10 against, and 1 abstention. As a constitutional reform, the decision must be rejected to be full Congress consideration, and for that end, it needs to obtain 14 votes in favor. Legislators who did not support it prior argue that this constitutional reform violates the rule of law. The National Association of Journalists in Peru denounces that more than 150 journalists have been attacked so far during the anti-government protests. The association's Human Rights Office registered 94 aggressions to journalists in January while they were covering demonstrations, almost all perpetrated by the police officers. The greatest numbers of these acts were concentrated in Lima, and the most aggressive agents were the police. The association also specified that among the most serious incidents was the death threat made by police officers against journalist Aldair Mejía in Juliaca. And in Ecuador, the National Electoral Council kicked off the date of local elections and constitutional referendum. More than 13 million citizens are expected to vote. Polling centers open their doors at 7 a.m. local time. During the day, the voters will have to elect 23 provincial prefects, 221 mayors, 864 urban councilors, 443 rural councilors, 4,109 members of local councils, and 7 members of the councils of citizens participation and social control. Voters will also have to answer the 8 questions of the referendum promoted by the government, which covers issues such as security, institutionalism, by political representation, and environment, whose proposals have been rejected by several social sectors. The opening of the day was made by the president of the electoral body, Dina Tamain, who during her speech she condemned the act of violence that took the life of the mayoral candidate of the city of Puerto López, Omar Menéndez. At the elections on Sunday, Ecuadorians will also have to answer an 8-question of referendum promoted by the government. Among the most controversial issues are the extradition of drug offenders and the reduction of a number of legislators. Representatives of several social and union organizations signed a document on their commitment to vote no to the questions posed by the executive. One of their main arguments is that the referendum was arranged without the participation of social sectors and that instead of solving the country's grave security problems, they pose a threat to social protests. The referendum also proposed to set a minimum number of militants for political movements as well as a modification of the selection process of control authorities. Just hours before a complex election day, Ecuador's President Guillermo Lasso faced the Judiciary and Prosecutor's Office on the discussion that will release the leader of the gang known the Choneros. The head of state addressed the country on national television to criticize the decision of Judge Maria Guzman and Prosecutor Julio Sanchez. Shortly before, the police Harenchian also made a statement on the matter. Junior Roldan Paredes was sentenced to more than 27 years in prison on charges of homicide, drugs, and weapons trafficking, among other offenses. The president said they will not respect the decision to release him, fulfilling the confrontation between the executive, judiciary, and public prosecutor's office. We'll take a very short break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro highlighted the strengthening of the people to face sanctions against the country as a part of the commemorations of the 31st anniversary of the civic-military rebellion of February the 4th. For their part, citizens ratified their support to the Bolivarian Revolution to President Nicolás Maduro, while they praised the deeds of the soldiers who rebelled against the neoliberal measures taken by the government of the so-called Fourth Republic. For his part, the president gave an historic account of the Bolivarian Revolution and the political processes in Venezuela. In turn, the president welcomed the large mobilizations to events for the 31st anniversary of February the 4th.
And I know that our people is stronger than ever to face disruptions, sanctions, aggressions, threats. To face whatever comes, we will face it. And we, together with our people, will always be victorious. We will always be victorious, come what may.
Later on, the president stressed the strength of the Venezuelan people to score future victories.
We have the blessing of our Lord Jesus Christ. We have the civil-military union. We have the historical project. We have the experience, the capacity, and with all the strength of our people, with the original spirit of the 4th of February, we will ride to the future and we will score the coming victories. Long live the 4th of February, 1992.
Finally, the head of state stated that what happened on February the 4th, 1992 was separated in history, with being the day in which Commander Hugo Chavez and the Bolivarian movement stood up for Venezuela.
The imperialist drunkenness led them to believe that they could sweep the world and take it over. The drunkenness of the International Monetary Fund led them to believe that they could recolonize Venezuela and that the people would be silent and would be asleep. And it was not like that. Someone had to do it, and it had to happen. It was written in history, in the history books of Venezuela, that the 4th of February would happen, and someone had to do it. And that was when Commander Hugo Chavez and the Bolivarian movement went out to the streets to stand up for the people, to stand up for our homeland, to stand up for history.
A new massacre has been registered in Colombia. 4 miners were executed in Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta in the northeast of the country. Authorities confirmed that victims between 20 and 40-year-old were found in neighbors in Tucurinca, though the 2 other survivors of bullet wounds and were taken to hospital. The fatal victims, 3 of whom have been identified, could be illegal miners, but investigators do not confirm any hypothesis yet. According to In the Past, this is the 13th massacre so far this year, and due to the severity of the event, an extraordinary security council will be held. In Mexico, 2 people lost their lives, 4 were injured, and 10 vehicles were burned at a fuel oil tank explosion at a gas station on the highway toward of the city of Tula in the central Hidalgo state. According to local media reports, the incident took place at 8:52 a.m. local time and caused the destruction of the station at a conventional store and several airmobiles. Local authorities closed all access to the streets near the highway Tahuelipan in the community of Iturbe. Emergency security forces from several communities in the region respond to the emergency actions and ask the population to move away from the evacuated area. The U.S. Air Force shot down a Chinese balloon as it was flying over the Carolina coast and begins to recover the debris. The shutdown comes after the airspace along the coast of North and South Carolina had been closed. According to the spokesperson for the Federal Aviation Administration, the government agency issued a group stop affecting 3 airports in North and South Carolina as the balloon drifted through its airspace. The high-altitude balloon was initially spotted over the Belen, Montana on Wednesday. Defense officials said the Pentagon considered shooting down the balloon early this week, but decided against it after the briefing President Biden.
Downward after
Wind chill temperatures fall below minus 43 Celsius in Boston as the United States faces a historic polar cold. Generational Arctic blast brought dangerously cold temperatures to swath of northeastern United States and Canada on Saturday. The National Weather Service said that among Washington in New Hampshire state, the wind chill factors reached minus 78 degrees Celsius overnight, breaking the previously lowest temperature recorded in that area at minus 74 Celsius. Extreme weather warnings covering several million people were in effect across much of New England, Quebec, and eastern Canada. The weather agency warned about the danger of being caught unprepared without shelters from the elements and without prepared winter survival gears. The devastating fires affecting several regions in Chile have so far caused the death of 16 people. The President of the Republic, Gabriel Boric, has defined the situation as tremendously complex. According to the report from experts fighting the flames in the regions of Maules, Ñuble, Biobío, and Araucanía, the eastern winds have contributed to the complicated situation. The executive declared a state of catastrophe in the Biobío region, 500 kilometers south of the capital, Santiago. The National Director of Disaster Prevention and Response Service, NAPRE, reported that the situation in affected areas has not been controlled yet. Morning is coming up after this financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back. Thousands of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv on Saturday night to protest against justice reform, which they view as an attempt by the right-wing government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to overhaul democracy in the country. The plans, which the government says are needed to curb overreach by judges, have drawn feared fierce opposition from groups including lawyers and rights concerned among business leaders, witnesses already the political division in the Israel society. Netanyahu has dismissed the protests as a revolt by the leftist opponents to accept the result of the last November elections, which reduced one of the most right-wing governments in the Israel's history. The protesters said Israeli democracy would be undermined if the government succeeded in pushing through the plans, which would tighten political control over judicial appointments and limit the Supreme Court's power to overturn government decisions or the against laws.
All the Israeli has to go out because in 1 year, in 2 years, if they succeed, this government succeeds to do it, it's going to be very bad in Israel. They can do things that makes war for Israel. And another thing, if the people of Israel is not going to do it, people are going to suffer here. People cannot stop. We cannot go back. We have to look forward. We cannot let them do whatever they want to do to change the democracy here in Israel.
On Saturday, Pope Francis attended a gathering of hundreds of South Sudan's displaced people. During the meeting, Pope Francis heard from children who have spent much of their life in the room from violence and urged South Sudan's leaders to restore dignity to the millions of their countrymen affected by the conflict. The manifest has been pushing South Sudan's leaders to heal division from the sake of a nation traumatized by the legacy of the 5-year civil war. Sudan has the worst refugee crisis in the African continent, reaching a total of 2.2 million internally displaced people. Pope Francis' speech was welcomed by hundreds of South Sudanese citizens who gathered to listen to him, many of whom have been internally displaced or suffered the effect of the already 5-year-long civil war.
Important to us because South Sudan has gone through a lot of suffering. There's a lot of war that went on, and people have really suffered, and we are scattered all over the world. And to me, he's coming, and with his message is a message of hope and a message that will bring us together.
Majority, 99 of South Sudanese people need peace and unity. As we have been in conflict, we need reconciliation. And we need justice to be prevailed in South Sudan. This is all what we need in South Sudan. And we pray that our leaders will hear the voice of hope.
Burkina Faso's military leader Ibrahim Traoré has declared that the diplomatic relations with France have not been broken. Although anti-French demonstrations have occurred regularly in the country since it took power in September, Captain Traoré stated that his desire for French special forces to leave Ouagadougou did not affect diplomatic relations with Paris. Former colonial power, France had special forces based in the capital, but its presence has come under intense scrutiny as anti-French state sentiments in the region grew, and Paris withdrew its ambassador to Burkina Faso over the coup junta's demand. Last month, Paris confirmed that special forces troops deployed to help fight a year-long terrorist insurgency will leave within a month. Southeast Asian Foreign Minister in Indonesia promised to end as soon as possible the talks about a proposed path with China aimed at preventing the fighting in the disputed South China Sea. In the final session of their two-day meeting, the ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, also agreed to unite their approach in the implementing of a five-step agreement made in 2021 between the black countries and Myanmar's military leader, Senior Jan Min Aung Hlaing, that seeks to end the crisis in Myanmar. China and the Asian member states, which includes 4 rivals claimants to territories in the sea, have been holding sporadic talks for years on a code of conduct, a set of regional norms and rulings preventing a clash that dispute waters. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also use us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.